Let me just introduce David Starnes. For those of you that maybe didn't get a chance to shake his hand or don't know, David's one of our deacons and has attended at the Beaumont campus for a very long time and has been up here just, I think, one time before, maybe twice. But anyway, Elliot's invited him to come share his testimony, and so we're looking forward to hearing from you. And I think you have your own Bible, so I'm going to move the giant Bible out of your way. So.
Yeah, so the deacons at Central were asked to come up here and give our testimony. That's always a privilege, no matter where we are, to give our testimony, and somebody asks us to do it. You know, I'll be first in line if I can be, so I enjoy that because my life is Christ. Everything else is just clutter and problems and not what I really wanted out of life, but because of God's faithfulness and because of His great love, I stand before you as a redeemed, saved man who's been blessed beyond measure. So I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I grew up with two parents that had a very acrimonious relationship. They just didn't know how to get past hurting each other. And as I look back on it, if they could have found a counselor that could have steered them in a more meaningful, godly relationship, I think things would have been a whole lot different between them. But it wasn't. It was a pretty hard place to live growing up. There was a lot of fighting. My parents didn't go to church on a regular basis. They would show up every now and then, but not on a regular basis. I had a brother and a sister that were younger than me. So if I would get up and get myself ready and create this luscious Pop-Tart buffet for breakfast to eat and eat that and drink my milk and brush my teeth and then wake Dad up, he would take me. And by the way, I grew up in Canton, Texas, small town between Tyler and Dallas on Interstate 20. Up there. He would take me and drop me off, and a couple hours later, because I would go to Sunday school and then church, he would come and pick me up. Well, strange thing happened. Even though my parents weren't with me, as I sat in those services with some of my friends and their parents, I started understanding things that were going on that the preacher was preaching about. I was paying attention. And God started working a conviction in my life. And one Sunday, at the age of 8 years old, before that, I had asked my mother a few weeks before. I said, Mom, what does it mean to be saved? And then what are those people that are walking down the aisle and talking to the pastor saying at the end of a service or during the invitation? And she said, the way you're saved is you give your heart to Jesus. She knew she was a Christian. She was just a backslidden Christian that had walked out of the church, just had not gotten back since her relationship with Dad. And but she knew the fundamentals there. Even though she was a Methodist, she knew the fundamentals there. So one Sunday, I was sitting with Johnny Loftus, my backdoor neighbor, and his parents, and I was in the middle of the row, and you know, I'm 8 years old, so I'm just a squirt with all these tall people, trees around me everywhere, and I was under conviction, and I decided that I was going to go down there, and I was going to tell the pastor that I wanted to give my heart to Jesus. And so I worked my way through the pew and walked down the aisle, and that's exactly what I did. I gave my hand to the pastor and said, I want to give my heart to Jesus, and I gave my heart to Jesus right there. That embarrassed the fool out of my parents because they weren't there. That's the way it is. And the pastor was a great godly man, and he came over and he counseled them and counseled me and made sure that what I did was a true, sincere relationship with Christ and that I was saved. And then he approved me for baptism, and I was baptized in the church on a Sunday night there one time, a few weeks later. So anyway, growing up, the relationship between my parents got worse, but I continued to go to church, continued to go to Sunday school and training union on Sunday nights. If you're really old like me, you'll remember that's what we did on Sunday nights, and then we went to church on Sunday nights. So I was growing, and these teachers were, teaching me new things, but not great things. I mean, they were doing the best they could. It just wasn't anything that was really sitting until I got in the 6th grade. And this man by the name of Max Callahan, he was a young man. He was in junior college. He was driving from Canton to Tyler Junior College every week, and he would come in on the weekends, and he would take this 6th grade boys Sunday school class out to have some fun. He would take us to Tyler, and we would play putt-putt golf, bowl, or do just silly things that junior high kids like to do, and be right there with us. When most people that are in college are so self-centered and are all worried about coming out the way they want to come out and starting their life the way they want to start their careers and all of that kind of thing, he didn't. He took his life and poured Christ into our lives and made a huge impact on my life. And as I look back now, I know this was God providing a much-needed blessing that I was going to need the very next year. Because in the 7th grade, in a small town in East Texas, my parents decided they could have no more of this, and they divorced. And I felt like everywhere I went, I was carrying the scarlet letter on my back, a big D. Okay, he's a kid from a family that's divorced, because divorce was not common back then at all. In fact, it was taboo. It just didn't happen. We're talking about the 7th grade. We're talking about the early 70s there. So I felt really bad about that, and I was at a real important juncture in my life. I could either go down the narrow road, which was the straight and narrow road, or I could go to the wide road in rebellion, because I was mad at both of my parents. I didn't want to have anything to do with either parent, and I was punishing them with everything I had in me for putting this stigma on me, and I had nothing to do with that. So at that intersection of the wide road and the straight and narrow road, I was a Christian, but man, was I feeling the bitterness. Max Callahan took a special interest in me, and Max Callahan was there for me to catch me before I stepped off into the wrong pathway and keep me on the right pathway and pour his love into me. He started coming by and just playing catch with the baseball, or taking me out on the back roads to drive his car and learn to drive, and just stuff where he could pour Christ into me and catch me at a very pivotal time in my life. And I look back and believe to this day, I would have gone through a real bad period of rebellion as a middle school boy with parents that had decided to divorce and stigmatize our whole family at that time. So Max was there for me, and to this day, Max is still one of my best friends. We've kept in touch the whole time. It's just that God can use people to pour into people and to help people when they go through trials and tribulations. And I didn't understand it at the time, but that's exactly what I was going through, trials and tribulations. And Max Callahan, out of the goodness of his heart and his love for Christ and pouring it back into me, got me through a really tough time. So, as I got into high school, I continued to have this great relationship with Max and with other people in the church that were pouring into us. That was a really good thing about the church, too. It was First Baptist Church of Canton, Texas, but they all knew that we were going through some really bad times, and they all kind of tried to perk us up every time they saw us on a Sunday, and just kind of do something. They didn't know what to do, but just do something to make us feel better. So that was very helpful. They were a very loving church and very loving congregation, and they gave of themselves. So I go to high school, get out of high school. I decide for some foolish reason that I want to play college football. So I go to Austin College in Sherman, Texas. Not a Christian school, even though it's a Presbyterian school, very liberal school, liberal arts school. And for some dumb reason, I played 4 years of college football, not knowing anything about CTE. So if I'm a little crazy up here tonight, you'll kind of understand where that came from, banging heads all the way through college. But after I got through there, I got into law school, and I went to Texas Tech School of Law and got my law degree. And then I interviewed with firms from different parts of Texas, mainly Dallas, and Tyler, because I was trying to get back up near Canton. But this one firm in Beaumont, Mahaffey Weber, which at that time was the largest law firm in Beaumont, offered me a job, and it was such a great offer. I came and I spent half of the summer with them and half of the summer with another firm. And I decided these guys were progressive and really good lawyers, and I could learn a lot from them. And so that's how I ended up in Beaumont. I didn't have any relationships down here whatsoever, didn't know anybody except that law firm when I got here. But this is where God wanted me. There's no doubt in my life. This is where God had placed me to be. And so when I got here, I was extremely filled with the Holy Spirit and really spiritual, and I'll illustrate that by what I did on Sundays. So on Sunday morning, I would get up and get ready for church, and I would either go to First Baptist Church in Beaumont or North End Baptist Church in Beaumont. And what would determine which one of those two I went to church with was when the Dallas Cowboys kicked off. So if they kicked off at noon, I could go to the 8:30 service at First Baptist Church, and I was home in time to eat and watch the Cowboys. If they had a 3 o'clock kickoff, I would go to North End because I liked that church better, and they had 11 o'clock service I could go to. So that was where I was spiritually, pretty non-committal and pretty poor. I had met a lawyer named Howard Close at a deposition a few weeks before the next turn in my life, and that was, I didn't know where he was going to church or anything, didn't even know he was a Christian at the time. But I got to the end of Folsom and Dallin, and I looked to the left, and I saw the sign for Calvary Baptist Church, and no one had ever invited me to go to Calvary Baptist Church, and I'd never been to Calvary Baptist Church. So I thought, I think I'm just going to swing in there and see what this church is like. And I pulled in, and as soon as I walked in the sanctuary, well, there was Howard Close and his wife Karen and a pew. And I went down and sat down with them, and they were, we exchanged pleasantries, and then the service. And at the end of the service, he said, hey, we teach a Sunday school class for young adults and college and career. Why don't you come join us next Sunday? And I said, okay, I'll do that. Well, once I said that, I was stuck. I knew I was going to have to go to Sunday school the next week as well, because I really wasn't walking with the Lord like I should have been at that point in time. And that class met because we had no space over at Central at that time. We didn't have the epicenter. We didn't have V2. We just had the main plant there, and it just wasn't enough space for us. And so we were meeting in the kitchen, which is, if you've been in Central, it's right off. It's where the deacons prepare the Lord's Supper, and it's right off of where the gym is, real small kitchen. And that's where the college and career and the young adults met. And so that first Sunday I went there, I noticed this girl that was just remarkably beautiful. And so I had my eye on her, and I thought, well, I've got to get to know her. And so over the course of time, we became really good friends in that Sunday school class, and the Sunday school class was doing things together and getting to know each other. And so we were friends for about a year. And this beautiful girl, by the way, is named Peggy. At that time, Peggy Shelton, now Peggy Starnes. And she was a teacher, and after meeting up and just being friends for a year, we dated. And in December of 1987, I proposed to her. She said yes, and then in March of 88, during spring break, we got married at Central. And Mike Dean was the pastor of Calvary at that time. And so we married, and God has just blessed me beyond measure with Peggy. And then we raised 3 girls who are all adults and gone now, doing their thing. But that was something that God had foreseen long before I would have thought about meeting somebody in Beaumont, marrying them, and staying here. I really got here thinking, okay, I'm going to get some experience, and then I'm moving back up to Upper East Texas, and that never happened. So, but I don't regret it at all. It's God used all of that to make me a better man and a better Christian. So after Peggy and I married in 1988, we took over the college and career class, which was separate from the singles, which was the young adults. And we taught that class for about 8 years and just had a blessing of one right after another from the people that attended that. It was really weird doing college and career. They would come, all of them would come on one Sunday, and then about half of them the next Sunday, and the other half the Sunday after that without the other half. It was really an inconsistent group, but a great group once you got them together. And then we started teaching a married couples class, and so altogether, Peggy and I have worked in Sunday school for 34 years and seen some great lives changed and some great transformations that God did in saving the people that were at our Sunday school class. So right now, Calvary is going through a transition, and we've been here before. We've been through transitions before, and every time we get into one of these, it's hard. It's hard because we are Baptist and we don't like change, and we want things to be consistent. And all I can say is we trust God in this process because we really don't know what we're doing. We're trusting God. We're going through 1 Timothy through great pastors, Justin and Mike Dean, teaching us what it means to be a church. And what I know from the experience that I've had at being at Calvary for so long is that God is not finished with us. God is faithful. He will see us through this, and He will make us better than we were before we started this process. Our best years at Calvary are right ahead. They are not behind us. And while it may be a while before we see that and realize that, I have every bit of confidence and faith in the Lord that He will do that, because God is love, and His love is unfailing, and He loves this church, and He will continue to bless this church and the lives in this church, and He will continue to transform the lives into a saving relationship with Jesus Christ. And those people will go on to disciple others, and it will continue on for as long as the Lord wills. And so look forward to that. And I've enjoyed my opportunity to come up here and give my testimony. I'm blessed beyond measure. Had it not been for some pivotal people in my life, I don't know where I'd be right now, but I know that God would have seen me through it. It just probably would have been a rockier, tougher road to get off of. So that's all I have. Thank you.